Welcome to First Mover, your first global look at today's action in the Bitcoin, blockchain, and digital asset space. I'm your host, Christine Lee, and joining me are my co-hosts, CoinDesk Managing Editor of Global Capital Markets, Lawrence Lewitinn, and Managing Director of International Content, Emily Parker. Good morning, you two. I have not slept.
Good morning. Yeah, you were partying. That's what you were doing.
I've got to say, this weekend feels like a month. It was just nonstop. It was partying, but it was also a lot of meetings, a lot of chit-chats, first in-person meet and greet in a long while. So that was a lot of fun.
And some celebrity sightings.
And
had some
so
fun.
I got to party down with Paris Hilton only because I'm pretty sure someone paid her to be there to party with a bunch of nerds.
I think most of the people there have not seen her other than in green lighting, so they might not have recognized her, to be honest. So anyway.
That could be very well true. All right, checking in on Bitcoin. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XVX index is currently trading at 36,700 and change. Bitcoin is up about 2.2% over the past 24 hours, and the CoinDesk Ether price ETX index right now at 2838. ETH is also up for the past 24 hours. The most reliable reference prices for institutions since 2014 are now published under the CoinDesk brand, trusted globally as the leader in crypto news, events, and data. But by far, one of the top stories that emerged out of the conference weekend was that the president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, making a video announcement and saying that he's submitting legislation to make Bitcoin legal tender. And there were, tears in the audience as this happened. And there were tears of joy, tears on stage, tears everywhere shared. But, a lot of enthusiasm and positive sentiment. But Emily, there are also some misgivings in this and that you had spoken about earlier.
Yes, I definitely do not pretend to be an expert on this government, but I think it is worth asking why a government would do something like this, what's in it for the government, and what kind of government is it? So, there definitely, if you just, do some reading about El Salvador, and there have been some concerns about consolidation of power, and yeah, I think it's just worth asking these questions because I think there's been a lot of talk about how Bitcoin is going to increase freedom and Bitcoin is going to increase liberty, and what kind of government is using Bitcoin for its own ends. So I just think these are questions that are worth asking.
It's the positivity is great, but it's also important to ask some clear questions. But Lawrence, another angle was, this is really bullish sentiment having El Salvador potentially have Bitcoin as legal tender, but the markets, they're positive that it didn't really move the dial.
No, not in the least bit. Here and there, but there are a lot of things. I mean, speaking of situations, we of course had China over a couple of days ago cracking down on some of the influencer accounts in crypto, and Janet Yellen. Interest not the worst thing in the world, and that of course means that curbing inflation might be something that she could foresee in the coming future, and that of course hurts the narrative of Bitcoin. And also, just the fact that you do have this crackdown on influencers, and the Chinese government showing that it's not thrilled with Bitcoin. In a way that's I don't want to say not thrilled with Bitcoin, but that they're going to take some efforts in crypto, that sort of dampens things a bit, and of course it dampens the market. We saw low options trades in volumes of low spot volumes. So any kind of good news or any kind of let's just say positive news for Bitcoin coming out of El Salvador, whatever that might mean, it's just no one cares right now.
Well, a question I have is, how feasible is using Bitcoin as a currency? And it turns out a small town in El Salvador called El Zonte, also known as Bitcoin Beach, has been experimenting with building a self-sufficient community that operates on Bitcoin. And joining us now is Bitcoin Beach Director Micheal Peterson in El Salvador. Welcome, Micheal.
Good morning.
So, Micheal, I feel like you're in a great position to weigh in on this. What's some of your insights on, the reaction in El Salvador to this news?
No, I think the people in El Salvador are just ecstatic that they're able to kind of lead the way and become the first nation in the world to adopt Bitcoin as an official currency. I think the markets are really underestimating the long-term impact that this is going to have. I think part of that is just because El Salvador is a smaller country, but as those of us in the Bitcoin space know, this is how game theory works. It's one small domino knocks the next and then to the next. And so I think this will go down in the history book as the moment that the financial world was kind of reshaped. And so, yeah, I really think we're going to see this play out over the next year in a way that everybody's underestimating.
Can you tell us a little bit, though, about how actually this works in practice? Because, we definitely are hearing a lot about how this is a watershed moment for finance and the sort of symbolic part of it. But how is this actually going to change things, both in El Salvador and the world?
Well, I think for El Salvador, it allows them to connect to the global economic system and financial system in a way they haven't been able to in the past. As people who have traveled quite a bit know, the world is really kind of segmented. The financial systems are kind of different walled gardens, and so it's hard for people to send funds from one across borders. There's a lot of friction. There's a lot of money that's kind of siphoned off during that time. And so this will allow basically El Salvador to connect to its diaspora, across the world. It'll allow people to send remittances with hardly any fees being involved. And it'll allow El Salvador to really bring Bitcoin jobs into the country. We established Bitcoin Beach about 2 years ago, and we've demonstrated that Bitcoin can really be used in transactional ways. We have a whole community that's transacting in Bitcoin on a daily basis. Probably 90% of the families in our community are using Bitcoin for anything from buying 25 cents worth of tortillas to paying their electric bill. And we've seen that this allows people that have been traditionally unbanked to now have access to digital payments. It allows them to have hope in the future. They can work remotely and be paid by Bitcoin companies in the US and make wages that are significantly higher than they would be able to make locally. And so it's really going to be transformative.
And ostensibly, it will probably be helpful for the government as well. I mean, the government is doing this, I imagine for their own purposes. And recently, there have been some concerns about the current government, in particular about leaning towards authoritarianism. I'm just wondering if you have any take on that, or if this is something that people should be thinking about.
I mean, of course, always we want to make sure that governmental power is kept in check. But I think a lot of the concern has been unwarranted. I think people confuse the popularity of Nayib Bukele for authoritarianism. And I mean, I think he has like 90% approval rate right now in El Salvador. And we've been down there for 17 years, and I've never seen the country, have the hope and the positivity that they have right now. And to have a leader that's kind of, pushing forward, trying to get rid of corruption and problems they've had historically. And so I'd ask people to give him the benefit of the doubt, and let's see how this plays out.
So, Michael, what does this mean? Bitcoin mean right now for the people of El Salvador? How do they view it? What's the sentiment? I know you've got your experiment there, but overall, you go to San Salvador, you walk around, you talk to people. What is their view of it? Is it still something that's kind of like, oh, they know it's there, but it's not something they use in their daily lives? Or is it something they're interested? Like, what's the feel there?
I would say, yeah, in the capital city, probably the most of people aren't using it in their daily lives yet, but they're definitely very aware of it. We've been making the news, both internationally, but also nationally, come pretty much every week, there's another news story coming out of Bitcoin Beach. And so people are very aware of what's happening. They're very aware that for the first time in their life, they have the opportunity to invest in an asset that's going to go up over time rather than go down over time. I think what most people in the US don't realize is for the majority of the world, they don't have access to stocks. They don't have access to other assets that they can use to build wealth. And so for people to suddenly have access to an asset that they can, save in, that's going to go up over time instead of going down over time, this is really transformative for them.
That's assuming that it will go up over time. So it's the sentiment that, well, yeah, exactly. I mean, but is the view of it as what exactly? Is it? Are they looking at it as a means of transaction, or are they using it as a store of value?
Both. I mean, they are using it as a means of transaction because for most of them, they don't have any other means other than physical cash. So this is their first chance to be able to make mobile payments. This is the first chance for them to be able to frictionlessly send payments over borders or to receive remittances from family members in the US without having huge fees siphoned off in the process. And so, yes, it's very transactional for them. It's not just digital gold, but it is also digital gold. They have a way that they can save that, they know there's no guarantee it's going to go up in value over time. But you look at its brief history and, obviously, it's only 12 years old, or 13 years old, so you can't, set too much security in that. But it also has shown that it is continuing to gain traction in the world, and people know how network effects happen. And once that snowball gets rolling, it's going to be very hard for it to stop.
Michael, maybe you can go into Bitcoin Beach a bit. How many people are in the community, and what were some of the barriers to get over in terms of technical knowledge needed to operate a Bitcoin wallet and how to custody your Bitcoin, and how are they dealing with rising transaction fees?
Sure. So actually in El Zonte, where we started, it's a small village, only about 3,000 people. But we've kind of expanded the whole region. So now there's a few 100,000 people that are interacting with Bitcoin on a fairly regular basis. And initially, we found that we focused too much on the technicalities of Bitcoin, too much on the history, and that was a little overwhelming to people at first. And we found the best way to get people transacting is just to get them transacting. Let them make their first few transactions, and then they have that kind of aha moment if they're like, wow, this is pretty amazing. For the first time in my life, I can send mobile payments. And initially, we were doing everything on chain, but like you mentioned, because of transaction fees, we found the need to switch to the Lightning Network. And I think even people in the Bitcoin space underestimate where the Lightning Network is at this point. It's very usable. It's very easy to use. We have everybody from 8-year-olds to 88-year-olds that are buying 25 cents worth of tortillas using Bitcoin over the Lightning Network.
That's great. Michael, really fascinating developments, and really interested to see how Bitcoin Beach and the country of El Salvador adopts Bitcoin.
I would love for you guys to come down. I think people, they kind of view it with a little bit of skepticism, but once they get there, they're definitely amazed that, wow, this is really happening. This is not the future. This is the present.
No, I'm excited. We'll make the trip down there one day. I'll give you a call, Michael.
Perfect.
All right, that was Bitcoin Beach Director Micheal Peterson. Coming up, checking in on Asia and the crypto markets with an update with Indian exchange WazirX. Time now for the daily forecast, an update on what's happening in the Asia crypto markets. Here's Angie Lau of Forecast News.
Welcome to the Daily Forecast, June 7th, 2021. I'm Angie Lau, Editor-in-Chief of Forecast News. Let's get you up to speed from Asia to the world. The China crypto crackdown continues. Over the weekend, dozens of crypto accounts on the social media platform Weibo were banned. These targeted users being told that they'd been in violation of the platform's guidelines and laws when they attempted to log in. The accounts featured market analyses and even promoted crypto projects. 17 of the affected users have since reopened accounts under new names. One of them even posted this reaction to what had happened, saying, quote, "The account that I've been using in the past few years was suddenly banned, but I have come to terms with it because the day was going to come sooner or later. But this is not the end of the freedom that DeFi symbolizes."
You look at the guys that they actually took down. These are people that they're about 25 in total. And some of them have very large followings. They are probably trading it themselves, yes, but these are guys that have a blog that other people can follow. And that's the key thing. They're trying to take away the source of the information so to make it more difficult, more risky for people to trade crypto.
The heavy hand of government also being felt in South Korea, where authorities have introduced more amendments to regulations governing cryptocurrency trading in the country. Now executives and employees of crypto exchanges will be banned from trading on their own platforms. Violators could possibly be looking at a penalty of nearly $90,000. They could also lose their business licenses. Now, according to local media, some exchanges aren't too happy with these changes. They've argued that the ban will restrict the cash flow needed to run these platforms and that it will render their income through commission illegal. Well, it's not all doom and gloom for crypto exchanges in Asia. London-based exchange Luno is looking to break into the Indonesian space. Now, Luno is owned by the Digital Currency Group and is reportedly in early talks with homegrown conglomerate Lippo Group about launching a joint venture in the country. The cap requirement for it will just be under $10 million, which the two sides intend on splitting equally. And taking a quick look at the end of the trading day here in Asia, Bitcoin prices finishing in the red, down 0.1% by 4 p.m. local Hong Kong time. And in the top 10 for cryptocurrencies, with the exception of Bitcoin, it's green all the way down to 10, Ethereum being the biggest performer, closing the day up 2.7%. Now shifting focus to Australia now, where the country's first capital growth fund aimed at exposing wholesale investors to Bitcoin has garnered quite a bit of inquiry, including from a superannuation fund as well as some of Australia's biggest wealth groups. That's according to Monochrome Asset Management founder Jeff Yu, who told local media that he hopes to lead the charge on Australia's adoption of crypto, and that includes helping the country set up its first Bitcoin ETF. Yu believes Australia's inertia when it comes to institutional investment in crypto stems from a shortage in regulatory mechanisms. And finally, despite crackdowns, there's still business to be done in China. China-based chipmaker Sunloon Company Limited has unveiled a new chip that supports mining on both Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. According to the company, the Jasminer X4 is the world's first high-throughput chip with integrated storage and computing. The launch obviously comes during turbulent times for industries in need of chips, particularly the automobile and consumer electronics sectors. And to add to their woes, the shortage won't end anytime soon, according to Singaporean logistics solutions company Flex. It could last well into 2022. And that's the daily forecast from our vantage point right here in Asia. For more, visit forecast.news. I'm Editor-in-Chief Angie Lau. Until the next time.
The Crypto Markets Update is presented by Grayscale, the world's largest digital currency asset manager. Time for a quick live look at Bitcoin. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XBX index right now trading at $36,654. Bitcoin is up about 2.3% over the past 24 hours. And the CoinDesk Ether price ETX index right now at 2838. ETH is up over 5% on the day. And joining us now to discuss the crypto markets is Nischal Shetty, CEO of India's largest crypto exchange, WazirX. Welcome, Nischal.
Hey, thanks for having me here.
So, I mentioned this a little bit before, but some pronounced that Bitcoin should be past $40,000 on Monday based on this El Salvador news, but we're seeing a bit of lack of enthusiasm in the market. So what are your thoughts on what's going on?
I think in a way, it also shows how stronger Bitcoin is and how it's probably not completely going to be news-based in terms of price movements. And while we've not seen a massive jump, I think I see that as a positive news in the sense that just news is not going to move the prices. You'll have to look at what happens in terms of adoption, and I think for that's quite a long way forward for even El Salvador to finally adopt Bitcoin and start transactions. And once you start hearing about the transaction sizes in the country and the number of people transacting, I think that's when eventually the prices should start moving upwards.
So now looking at the current market, we see the volumes are fairly low right now, and that's not just in spots and options. So what's going wrong? I mean, what happened? Is there just not? It's not just about price. Is there just a lack of money wanting to go into crypto at all?
I think the first half of the year, if you think about it, it's been really active for the crypto markets, and I sort of think that people are probably taking a break from all the madness that has been happening from the last 6 months, and probably want to place a finger on what's going to be that bottom for Bitcoin. And if you look at, even though there's not a lot of movement in the market right now, the prices still seem to be really strong. Bitcoin at $36,000, I don't think it's that bad, considering what the prices were in the early first half of 2020. So I guess the next couple of months is going to be probably in this similar zone. And then from there, I expect the markets to move.
Good morning. Welcome back. What is the current mood in India right now? India always seems to be a bit of a roller coaster when it comes to crypto regulations. There's always news of the fears of a ban, and then there's not a ban. But what's happening right now?
I think 2021 has been sort of really good for India in the sense that we've heard our leaders talk positively about the whole crypto sector. We've even gone from last year where there were talks of a ban to this year where our leaders have said that India would take a calibrated approach towards regulating crypto assets in the nation. Recently, there was a news that instead of looking at crypto as a pure currency, India is looking at it as an asset class. And I think that's a very important distinction and classification. Because when you think of currency, the law get a little against Bitcoin. But if you look at it as an asset class, there seems to be more breathing space for the innovation to continue in the country. So I would say the last 6 months have been pretty good compared to 2018, where we had a banking ban, and then 2019 we had a draft bill which spoke about a ban. In comparison to that, this year has been pretty good for India.
So, Nischal, what currencies right now are popular on WazirX besides Bitcoin and Ether?
I think Matic, one of the more popular Indian projects, pretty popular. Then it's sort of, there's always a flavor of the month. It was Dogecoin for the last 3 months. And in between, you had the SHIB token. And then Tron is pretty popular. We have WRX, which is our own native token that's popular because people use it for trading discounts. It just goes all over. It more or less resonates with what the global trends are.
All right. Nischal, thanks so much for the update. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
All right, that was WazirX CEO Nischal Shetty. Coming up, an SEC-registered crypto robo-advisor and checking in with CoinDesk's Nick Day.
CoinDesk Indexes, the market standard for crypto assets since 2014. Our trusted data powers billions in publicly traded funds. CoinDesk Indexes are the standard used by institutions, and they're the key for investors looking to understand and access crypto markets.
CoinDesk Bitcoin Price Index, XBX, has been instrumental to Grayscale, enabling investors around the world to access Bitcoin through a regulated, familiar product.
CoinDesk Indexes enabled the early adopters to build crypto investment vehicles, and they're already trusted by a new generation of global investors.
The CoinDesk Spotlight is brought to you by Nexo, the place to earn on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and more.
Makara, a crypto robo-advisor registered with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, has launched to its 20,000-strong waitlist, claiming to be the first of its kind registered with the SEC. Their app will offer 6 thematic baskets of assets specifically weighted to Bitcoin, Ethereum, and decentralized finance tokens. Joining us now to discuss is Makara CEO, Jesse Proudman. Welcome, Jesse.
Thanks for having me.
So Jesse, how does this crypto robo-advisor work, and what is the investor profile? What does it look like?
Yeah, just coming back from Bitcoin 2021, it was pretty obvious there are millions of users here in this ecosystem that understand this asset class. But all of us are receiving messages day in, day out from our friends and family who, quite frankly, find this entire asset class too confusing. It's too hard for people to participate here. Everything's named the same thing. You have to learn a whole new language. And on top of all that, the volatility is quite scary for most people. So our thesis with Makara was, could we take sort of the familiar concept of thematic ETFs that people have become accustomed to in traditional investing and bring it to crypto without the ETF component? We want to make crypto more accessible to a new market participant that isn't already here.
So Jesse, welcome. How are you able to model a crypto portfolio as a robo-advisor, given the relatively short track record of things such as DeFi? How are you able to allocate or to suggest allocations to people? And are you looking at their overall portfolio or just crypto itself?
Great question. So Makara is powered on technology we've been using within a company called Strix Lewitinn for the last 3.5 years. Strix is a systematic hedge fund operating in the space. And so using that technology, we're able to build these model portfolios or thematic baskets, as we call them, in an algorithmic or systematic way. So a basket is effectively a combination of market selection and rebalancing criteria. So DeFi, for example, we put through a market selection and identify the appropriate markets for the basket, and then a rebalancing criteria that allows an investor to effectively make one decision. I will invest in this basket, and let that basket then handle all of the allocations to the asset class directly.
So you have accomplished the feat of being SEC registered. Can you tell us a little bit about that process? Was that extremely difficult? What were some of the challenges in getting through the SEC process?
Yeah, it's actually been a really exciting endeavor for us. So we've taken an effort over the last 3.5 years in the original Strix Lewitinn business, and now with Makara, to really approach this asset class with the regulated first approach. I think a lot of firms in this asset class have identified regulatory arbitrage opportunities and have done everything in their power to avoid regulation because it's hard. And we think that it's an okay way to get started. It's sort of the Uber model. But over time, it's more important to begin to embrace regulation and bring this asset class more into the mainstream. So we were able to leverage all of the experiences we've had over the last 3.5 years as we put together our application. And then we found the SEC really to be quite progressive in their approach. So where many state regulators may be a bit laggard in their interpretation and understanding of the rules, the SEC has been here for the last number of years in the trenches with this asset class, beginning to understand. And so I truly believe there's an appetite for firms who can take that regulatory first approach and that can solve a big hole in the market that we have today.
And is Makara actually holding on to the crypto and holding it on in the robo-advisor work?
Yeah, good question. So as a SEC registered RIA, we have a fiduciary responsibility to work with a qualified custodian, and the qualified custodian then holds on to the client's capital. So in this construct at launch for Makara, we've partnered with Gemini, and Gemini acts as the custodial partner where assets are maintained, and as the trading partner where assets are traded on behalf of the user.
So as part of the regulated aspect of your business, what are you permitted to advise on and what are you not permitted to advise on?
Good question. So the product from a robo-advisory perspective, if you think of traditional robo-advisory, the objective there is identifying risk and building a portfolio that is ordered and tolerated towards your risk tolerance. In this asset class, that doesn't really exist because you've got risky, riskier, and riskiest. So the objective here for us was to identify interests and match these investors' interests with the thematic baskets that are appropriate. So it could be something as simple as concerns around inflation and matching that investor with our inflation hedge basket, which is tokenized gold and Bitcoin 50-50 rebalanced quarterly. Or it could be somebody that's more interested in the entire asset class. They just think it's a fascinating industry and wants exposure in the same way that you can go to the Russell 2000 and get broad-based exposure. Here we offer something called the Universe Basket, which provides risk-weighted exposure to everything that's available on platform. So our objective is to normalize the language. This is no longer a conversation around how do I pick individual coins or how do I trade. This is not a day trading experience. This is an investing experience, and an investing experience across the entire universe of this asset class.
Mm-hmm. All right, Jesse, thanks for coming on the show and weighing in on and telling us about Makara.
Appreciate you having me.
All right, that was Makara CEO Jesse Proudman. Time to check in with CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day, who is also the editor of CoinDesk's The State of Crypto newsletter. Hello there, Nick. So we hear there are some congressional hearings in the schedule up for June. You have a sense of how that's rolling out. What's going on?
Yeah, so there are 4 hearings this month that are worth paying attention to. Maybe the most interesting to me is the fact that the Senate Banking Committee, or at least a subcommittee in the Senate Banking Committee, is holding a hearing on central bank digital currencies this Wednesday. The House Financial Services Committee also has a subcommittee hearing on central bank digital currencies closer to the end of the month. So, I guess this idea of a digital dollar has been gaining steam for a while, but it seems we're now to the point where we're going to see, more regular hearings about it in Congress. We're also seeing a hearing on Wednesday about ransomware, specifically kind of a postmortem on the Colonial ransomware hack. But, given ransomware's recent, I don't want to say rise to prominence, but just the more recent, really high-profile attacks, it's definitely worth paying attention to seeing how legislators might respond to it and how they're approaching this question of, what to do about ransomware, especially since, as we discussed last week, there is definitely a crypto angle here. And then the final hearing is just a little ominously named. It's going to be looking at the crypto frenzy, and that's at the end of the month. I believe, I'm not 100% certain, I'd have to check, but I believe that Representative Brad Sherman might be the chair of the subcommittee that's holding this hearing. Yeah. So, Representative Sherman, of course, is not a huge fan of the crypto industry. And I think this hearing will be pretty interesting to keep an eye on.
Nick, why do you think all these central bank digital currency hearings are happening now? What do you think is sparking this?
I think this issue's kind of gotten a recent boost in the fact that, Fed Chair Powell and other members of the Fed have said at various points that, the first research report that they're working on will be published this July. So that's next month. We're, finally getting to a point where the U.S. Central Bank is going to say, here's how we're looking at this, and something hopefully more detailed than just kind of the vague statements and policy considerations they've announced before. And the flip side to that, I think, is, a lot of this discussion around central bank digital currencies was, intentionally or not, sparked by the original version of the Libra project back in 2019. Facebook announced it, and legislators around the world were thinking, oh, wow, this is actually here to stay. We should probably be thinking about this. So I think the fact that, Libra, now named Diem, has announced that it's launching, it wants to launch a US dollar stablecoin in the US that's, a single asset stablecoin. And I think this is new, but they've, members of the project have more recently said that they'll plan to phase it out once a actual central bank digital currency is issued. I think that, there's something to that may also be kind of raising awareness or at least sparking these kinds of discussions.
So, Nick, Jay Clayton, former SEC chair, he wrote a piece in an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal over the weekend, basically advocating for any possible coordination between, let's say, the CFTC and the SEC as is being proposed in Congress. Anything in there that is new about how Jay Clayton was looking at the world, or is it just kind of rehashing some of what we already knew about his view of the world?
So the interesting thing to me is my understanding is when he was at the SEC, Clayton did actually, frequently meet with his counterparts at the CFTC to discuss this issue of digital assets, among other things. So, I think my question is, what is his vision of this coordination looking like if it's not, directly interfacing with his counterparts? This would have been former CFTC chairman Christian Carlo, and then for a little bit, former CFTC chairman Heath Harper. So I am kind of curious, what the specifics of this look like. And, he had, I think, 4 years to provide his views on this regulatory landscape and how it can mature. He was a chairman during arguably one of the most pivotal periods for the digital asset space so far. The wake of the ICO boom, wake of the last bull run, and then subsequent, just kind of down market. So it feels like he had, this opportunity. My big question is just, what's different about what he's advocating for now versus what he could have done while he was still in office?
Mm-hmm. Well, we can count on you to continue monitoring Washington, D.C. for us. Thank you very much, Nick, for joining us.
Thanks.
All right, that was CoinDesk managing editor of Global Policy and Regulation, Nick Day. Time now to check in with crypto Twitter with our tweet of the day. And this one actually from the, unfortunately, I can't. The Paraguayan Congressman Carlitos Reala tweeting, and this is translated from Spanish. As I was saying a long time ago, our country needs to advance hand in hand with the new generation. The moment has come, our moment. This week, we start with an important project to innovate Paraguay in front of the world. The real one, to the moon, hashtag BTC and PayPal. He added laser eyes to his profile pics, sparking further bullish sentiment that in addition to El Salvador, Paraguay may adopt Bitcoin in some meaningful way. So we'll see what develops out of there. That's it for First Mover. Thank you, Emily Parker and Lawrence Lewitinn. I'm your host, Christine Lee. I'll be back live at 3 p.m. with All About Bitcoin. Coming up at noon is The Hash. You're watching CoinDesk TV.